Hello girls, well welcome to our online event, This Is Motherhood. I'm so glad that you chose to tune in tonight. You know, the initial idea for this gathering was that we would get together girls of all ages that are young mums in the season of raising incredible children. But the idea has blown up and I'm so grateful for it because it means we get to reach into more homes this way. And so thank you for joining us. I know this night and this conversation is going to be unbelievable. Can I introduce you to start with our two guests for tonight? I want to introduce Kirsty. She is a mum, she is a pastor, she is a wife, and she is the founder of Home Chronicles, which is an online blog you're going to love. Say hi, Kirsty.
Hello, it's so good to be with you girls, whether you're in your lounge room, your kitchen, if you're lying in bed with an iPad. I'm just a little bit jealous really, but really we're going to have so much fun with you tonight. I love these girls. I've only just met Deb, who is absolutely fabulous, and I haven't seen Joey in about 15 years. So we're just going to have fun and get your cuppa, join along.
I love it. And I want to introduce Debbie Winnington. She is a business executive. Gosh, I'm inspired by her. She is a wife. She is a mum of two incredible young adult men, and I know she's going to have so much wisdom tonight. Say hi, Debbie.
Oh, hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Joey, thank you for inviting me. I feel so honoured, so privileged. I've actually secretly been fangirling Kirsty, so I'm so excited to be here. I've been stalking her blog and I've already cooked recipes from it, and I've read every single one of them. There's so much that she says. I'm like, yes, I totally agree, and that's what I did. So I feel very honoured. So thank you, Joey.
I love it. We're just going to have a casual conversation tonight. You know, from our chairs to your couch or bed, wherever you tonight. You know, we are not polished. We are not perfected mums or pastors or leaders, whatever it is. We are just like you, navigating the daily. And right now we obviously have another dynamic, this little silly, crazy virus, whatever it is, to talk about. So we were going to add that in tonight, not to ignore the elephant in the room. But tonight is about having fun, and we're just going to chuck some banter around and do some fun things and chats. Let's start with something crazy, all right? I want to get to know you guys a little bit more. The girls want to know you. We're going to throw some two options out, and I want to hear your choices. You ready?
Okay,
ready.
All right, here we go. Savoury or sweet?
Savoury.
Sweet.
You're so different.
Look at my size.
Deb.
Grazing platter.
Grazing platter is your answer.
Specific savoury.
I love it. I love it. Chocolate or strawberries?
Chocolate.
Chocolate, without a doubt.
Okay, good. Paris or New York?
New York.
Oh, New York. We're meant to be going in September.
Oh, no. Okay, fingers crossed. You might still get there. I hope for you. Okay. Netflix at home or cinemas in the city?
Oh, can we have both?
No, you got to choose.
Netflix at home because PJs.
PJs.
Yeah.
All right, you can have both.
Both,
Fine.
great.
I feel
Definitely
like we
both.
need to be doing that head thing. You know, the ding.
Yeah.
I know, we should have done that. Okay, Beyonce or Adele?
Adele.
Beyonce.
Oh, I love that yours are so different. This is going to be a great night.
Good. Yeah, this is good.
Tea or coffee?
Neither.
Coffee all the way.
I don't drink either.
You don't like hot drinks?
Hot chocolate.
Okay, yeah, you can have
Peppermint
that.
tea. No, I actually don't even really like peppermint tea. I just pretend.
That's a little bit like me. I get hot with hot drinks.
Yeah, not good with hot drinks.
And your coffee?
Oh, 100%.
Die hard?
Yeah.
Die hard.
Die hard coffee.
Little secret, I stockpiled on beans, okay? Everyone's stockpiling on toilet paper.
Right.
I'm all about the beans.
Okay, that's
Need it for my machine at
hilarious.
home. I am
There's got to be more than just you doing that.
You can call me an addict, but beans.
you
I
love
am
it.
not running out of beans in a lockdown.
I thought you meant green beans.
No, it's
way.
coffee beans.
No
That
way.
shows
Coffee
that you're
beans.
truly not a
Yeah,
coffee
you
girl.
really
Not
don't.
at all.
Okay, morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
I'm actually a bit of both on this one too.
Is that right now or normally? You love it.
I'm both. I
You're
stay up
making
late
most
at
of a
night
girl.
and I get up early in the morning too. I
So
do a bit of both.
You're one of those geniuses who needs 4 to 6 hours sleep.
Yeah, I
And-
probably get 5 or 6 at the
5
most.
hours. Okay, we're going to hear about this
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah,
This
not
is
much.
crazy. All right. Royals or Kardashians?
Oh, Kardashians. All the way Kardashians.
Okay, definitely not Kardashians, but not even royals.
Not
Is
even
that
Royals.
bad?
Neither. You can say neither.
I totally loved watching both royal weddings with,
Right.
you know,
That's a special
you
occasion.
just kind of got to
But
check
you're not
out the
into it.
dress.
You don't
Not
have to be into it.
No,
Dogs or cats?
dogs.
You're
Was that
sold
quick?
out. Yeah, that was quick.
Okay.
Neither.
I have to say neither.
Okay, you're just not a pet girl.
I know, but please still like me even though I don't have animals.
I'm loving this.
Joey, what are you?
Pet's not the one you should ask me.
What about
See, she
like
doesn't like pets either.
Yeah.
Good.
We're
Well,
a
I
bit
do
similar.
what
like
about
dogs, I
like
shouldn't
fur
say
free?
that.
You could get one of those little minx cats.
Like I want a cat because they like company and they're yummy.
Yeah.
And dogs are messy, but I like them.
I just
So
wish
don't
they
know.
didn't poo and wee. If they didn't poo and wee and they stayed as babies, I'd have both.
I get it.
But
How
that's
did you
the
do
problem.
with children then?
Okay, we're gonna have to
Exactly.
get to that. That's hilarious. Movies or books?
Movies.
Books.
Movies. Oh, I
Book
love
nerd.
it. One of
Yeah,
each.
movies.
Rain or sunshine?
Oh,
Sunshine.
can it be both?
Yeah, I know. That's a hard one.
It's a hard
that
one.
is a hard one.
Okay,
It's
last
both.
one. Pizza or pasta?
Oh.
Oh,
I'm going to go a chili prawn garlic and lemon
Oh,
pasta
yum.
with the really fine angel
can we do
spaghetti.
gluten-free pasta?
We can
Yeah, and
Okay,
I'm
do
going to
it.
go to Kirsty's and have that with her.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going
wanna
to
go
cook
for
that.
Yeah.
I'm going to cook that
Okay,
with
great.
Rocket
Can
Yeah.
we do that?
and
Yeah.
put it on Home
coming
Chronicles
for
just for
that.
Deb. You
Okay.
come over and sit 1.5 meters
I
away
love
from me.
it.
I can hardly wait.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Okay, I already know a little bit about you. You're both so different. I'm loving it. All right, so as we know, it's gotten a little bit crazy around the world right now, and we are all navigating this daily, right, girls?
Yep.
Just straight up. I just want to know how you are. How are you? How are your marriages? How are your kids? Like, how are you? Deb, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'm great, obviously, because there's way more things, because I do know that this virus will end,
Yeah.
but it's definitely busy. It's definitely navigating new ground that we've never navigated before.
Yeah.
My business world's probably a little bit more, I don't like to use the word chaotic because I think chaos is something that's out of control,
Yeah.
but it's definitely different to how it looked maybe a month ago. So we're navigating through that. As far as in our home, it's kind of really hasn't changed it too much, but yet there's definitely things that have happened to each of my family members, which I'll share with you a little bit later, because of the virus. So, no, but in general, I really can't complain because I don't have
I
it, and
know.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so grateful that my whole immediate circle are all well and healthy.
It just feels
So-
like we're in a movie, right?
Yes,
It's not
correct.
unless it's
It does.
you know
It does.
huge and it's like a big business change or
Yeah.
whatever. I know for me, I'm just feeling a bit like, are we really in this dream or
yeah.
you know what is it? What about for you?
Yeah, look, I've been running at a full pace. I've had long days, as
Yeah.
well as being a pastor. I work for our group of churches nationally.
It's awesome.
And so because of my wonderful boss, who I really love him and Lynn, our senior pastors, Wayne and Lynn Alcorn. So I love them to bits, and because he's running at a fast pace, I'm running at a fast pace.
Of course, yeah.
But quite honestly, what we're running fast on are positive things to bring hope,
So good.
to bring community aid, to roll out national responses. So what we're doing is good, why we're doing it, and because there's a virus definitely is sad.
Yeah.
Our immediate family are overall doing good. We've had chats with the boys, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
I sprained a rib yesterday because of too much typing. And
Typing?
yes, so if you see me do something funny tonight in the way I sit, I'm just trying to breathe. I can't take deep breaths. So that's
Sweet, poor
interesting.
thing.
Yeah, that's my coronavirus injury.
That's
a
all that's
sprained
happening.
rib.
If you walk away with that, you're good.
I'm good.
That's awesome.
Grateful.
Okay, so speaking about the boys, you've
Yeah.
got two little boys,
Yes.
7 and 9. You've
Yeah.
had a chat. I think it'd be great just to even tell a little bit about to the girls. How did you have the conversation? How did you package it? I know a couple of the girls have been, they're speaking to is just knowing what words to use and, what is your advice about that?
Yeah, so my husband actually came up with a really great idea. Our son came home talking about, Mum, there's the coronavirus and it's killing people around the world. And we're like, how did you hear this? And I watched it on BTN. Do you remember BTN, Behind the News? Did you?
Oh, yeah, at school, yeah.
At school. So that's still a thing.
Okay.
And our kids bring home some, particularly our eldest Levi, he's got the best imagination and is a great storyteller.
Awesome.
So he takes everything and his little brain just retains it like a sponge. So my husband, he basically gave it a label. So he said, it's not coronavirus, it's COVID-19. Coronavirus has existed, for a long time. It's a new strain. And why he said that was really just to narrow it down. And for the fact that coronavirus has existed then for many years, decades, whatever, it kind of changed the weight of it, of this is not new, the strain is.
Right.
So that just for our sons, particularly our eldest, just helped simmer it down. Then we talked through statistics. So we went through, it does affect people, and the people it affects, it is sad. We don't take away from the fact that there's certain vulnerable groups. That's important. So, but for him as a child, obviously, kids can go straight to life or death. And in fact, just today, my mum picked up our kids from school, and she told me that our youngest, they were talking about how much they love each other. Aww. And she said, can you tell me, even when you're a grown-up boy, when you're a grown-up man, can you please tell me how much you love me? Because I love, because they're both very expressive boys and affectionate with their words. And he goes, if I make it to an adult. And she said, what do you mean, sweetie? And he goes, just with the virus. And he said it very matter of fact.
Oh my gosh.
So we actually, before I got here, we had to have a conversation, and we just had to minimise and explain. You
just don't know what their little minds are doing.
So we asked lots of questions, and I think don't minimise the fears that kids have. I was taught by our senior pastors, puppy love is real to puppies. Which has always stuck with me for so many different things. So what may seem irrational to us, if it's real to the child, make it real for you. Ask them questions, clarify things, and where possible, minimise. And don't give too much information, but also don't hide away from information. I think kids are more resilient than we give them credit for the most part. And for Nick and I, my husband, it's really important to us that honesty is something we have in our family, which is different to hype or being inflammatory.
Love that. I love that. I love that so much. I've been speaking through with a few young mums and women at this time, and just trying to navigate, the different dynamics. Some things that it's work-related, health-related, different concerns. And probably the thing that's really sticking out in conversations at the moment is that girls are just letting their thoughts get ahead of them, We start to get a little anxious or concerned about those things, finances, home, husbands, jobs, work, that kind of thing. And I think girls who rapid fire our thoughts, sometimes, we just get lost in it. I know how important it is, as a Christian, to really hold our thoughts captive and renew our mind, and all those things that we practically learn, from reading the Bible and from church, those kind of things. But I know, for girls who maybe don't know about those things, Deb, just speak into that. How do we get our thoughts to just calm down and settle down and speak peace into our mind and address that, hey, I'm thinking irrationally right now. I'm getting way ahead. I know that there's one phrase that I just love, which is just a reminder, worry is like walking around with an umbrella just waiting for it to rain. I just think it is just that posture of just like, this possibly mightn't even happen, but you're just putting yourself in that state, just worrying and anxious. And, what are your thoughts on that? How do we just stop that and just calm down our thoughts at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Joey, this is something that probably for me, my whole life, every single day of my life, I'm very, very aware of this whole process of renewing your mind, because I don't think it's just about this time of the virus. I think it's, navigating our way, especially as young mums. Our thought life is critical to how we respond to our children. And we do actually want to do that. We want to be able to respond. We don't want to react. And that all comes from our thought life. So guarding your thoughts is something that I actually take a lot of time to invest in, and you do have to do that. It just doesn't happen on its own. There are some things in life that we actually have to put the work into if we want to get the result out of it. And renewing of the mind, it does take a work, and it is a discipline. And in my family, we're big into discipline, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's actually a positive thing in our household. I'll tell you a little bit about both my sons later, but discipline is a big part of both of their lives, and that's come even when I think back through my childhood, it was a big part of mine. So renewing of your mind is a discipline that we need to embrace, and it's, captivating our thoughts. It's guarding our thoughts, and we guard our thoughts. We hear that so loosely said. Well, how do I practically guard my thoughts? Well, the first and foremost way is be careful with social media. You know, if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling like your thoughts are more negative than not, and that's very easy. Don't feel like that makes you weak or that makes you, you know, you're not as good as the next person because of that. You just have to turn the news on and you can feel your thoughts getting all negative. You know, I'm very intentional about what I have on in our home. I'm very intentional with social media. There was a period of time, actually probably only about a year or so ago, where I had to completely withdraw from Facebook.
Yeah.
I was still on Instagram. I was fine with that, but I found Facebook really overwhelming, probably because I have a lot of work platforms on Facebook as well, and I felt like it was constant. I felt like I could never turn off. It wouldn't matter what time of the night it was. I'd click on Facebook and all of a sudden it would drag me back into work mode, and I could feel my thoughts going. I was resenting it. I started to resent my job, and it was all because of this thing called social media that was just putting it in front of me. My job is fabulous. My job is fantastic. I'm so blessed to have it, but because of a medium called social media, and that particular one was Facebook, it never allowed me to turn off. So I had to captivate those thoughts and I had to withdraw from that. It doesn't mean you have to take it away totally. You put boundaries in place. A lot of times, you know, we think we've got to throw it all and we can't do that, and it's like, oh no, I couldn't possibly do that. Just put boundaries in place. So definitely, if you're having trouble with anxiety or you know, even just thinking negative. It doesn't have to be as serious as anxiety. Just you notice that everything that comes out of your mouth will reflect what's happening in here. So if you're worried about what you're thinking, start listening to what you're saying, and that will tell you where your thoughts are at. So that's always a good measure to know when we need to captivate our thoughts. So, you know, if you're in that time and you're feeling it's negative coming out, well, you know, maybe withdraw from social media. Another big thing is, like, I have built my life from when I was 14. My parents actually, when we became Christians, we are Christians, and our faith is a very big part of, it's not what we do, it's who we are. You know, we believe in developing the self, you know, making ourselves better people. And we want to be better people because we want to be kinder people. We want to be nicer people. And to do that, you've got to work on that as well. So I call it personal development, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it has to have a name, but I invest into that also. So I listen to really good podcasts. I read a lot of really good books. Reading's not something probably that's naturally what I love to do, but I do it because I know it's good for me. I know that when I've put that thing down, I feel better. You know, I try to start my day with it, and I try to finish my day with it. You know, I say I try because I don't want to say I always do, because there certainly are the times that I may get hooked up on something that's on the television, or a friend has FaceTimed and all of a sudden you're nodding off to sleep. But more times than not, I make sure that I'm feeding myself good things, because what goes in comes out. This is all part of that renewing of the mind. For me, reading the Bible is a big part of that. You know, there are very simple ways you can do that. I know some people can read the Bible and look and think, oh my gosh, did I just read that and what did that just mean? It says nothing. But I've just started listening to, I feel like an old lady when I say it, but I actually really love it. I listen to scripture on like a loop, and it just plays constantly. And like, I just very, very simply, one day I was feeling really flat, and I sort of thought, well, you know, let's find out about victory things. So I sort of typed into YouTube, you know, what does the Bible say about victory? And then all of these really great verses come up. So I now, when I do my makeup, and it is something I do every day, around about 5:30 in the morning is when I put my makeup on for the day. So I just press play on that and I have it playing, and it makes me feel good. Music is another one. Music is a great medium for renewing your mind. Again, because it changes how you feel. You know, it can pick you up, but make sure you're listening to music that has a good theme, a good, you know, words behind it, things that will make, you know, know when something is good for you and when it isn't because of simply how you feel. But again, this is choices that we make. You know, we can choose to put the news on first thing in the morning and start our day with negative after negative after negative after negative. Like, it just amazes me. Let's even forget about the virus. I mean, it's just one, the houses burning down, or people getting killed, or people being robbed, or it's very hard to get your head in a good space when that's what you're filling your mind with. So be really conscious. I definitely think it's critical. I don't think it's something we can ignore. I think that everything else that we talk about tonight, every little one of those things will come right back to how we think.
Yeah, awesome.
So it is something that I really do believe in, very passionate about, and it actually becomes a way of life.
Yeah. And it's choices, right?
Yes,
it's making choices.
Absolutely.
I know Roman the other day, he's my 11-year-old. Adam and I had the news on, and he walked in, and as soon as he saw the screen and that we were watching another news and it said coronavirus on the bottom, he went, ugh, and walked out again.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, and it really just hit me. And I thought, okay, I'm responsible for the environment of our house. I'm responsible for the tone of this, and I need to shut that off and acknowledge that he was even done with that in the home. Yeah. And so, you know, Kanye beats on, cooking in the kitchen, let's change the space, you know, responsible for replacing those thoughts, responsible, like you're saying, for the input, what's coming in, light a candle, put the worship music on, you know, and bring peace in and make those conscious choices. I know, Kirsty, a big part of your story, and I would love you to, for your next part of this, to share your testimony with the girls. A big part of what I've read about your testimony is about bringing peace to the chaos, really what we're chatting about now. Yeah. I would love you to share with us about that.
Yeah. So I guess starting at the critical changing point for me, I was in year 12. I excelled in a lot of things at school, and I really threw myself into school. It was, I was school captain in year 7, I was school captain again in year 12. I did pretty good with academics. I was a bit of an all-rounder in, you know, whatever subject. I didn't try hard, and I could do well. Yeah, right. And then when I did try well, so it was good and bad, because sometimes I did worse than what my potential was because I was a bit lazy or complacent. But school was my everything. I threw myself into it. Looking back now, I know why I threw myself into school. So I grew up in a home of domestic violence. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know it had a label to it. It was my normal. So one of the things I get really passionate about is when people say, why don't they just leave him, or why don't they just leave her? Part of it is people don't know the situation that they're in because it's their normal. Wow. So much so that I actually thought everybody's family was like mine, and some people were just better at hiding it. Wow. That's honestly what I thought. So I got to a point basically halfway through year 12, and school had been my place of escape, and all of a sudden it wasn't. I started getting bullied at school, and a couple of things happened. So I found myself in this position where I could no longer escape. The place that was my haven was no longer. And so I felt suffocated, and I felt permanently in pain. And I found myself on my bed. I'll never forget the day. I was on my bed in my room at home, and I just was contemplating seriously, how can I end my life? Wow. What can I do right now to escape this pain? And I still get emotional about it, thinking about it, but the big thing for me was I can't leave my mum and sister behind. Wow. That was my decision to keep going. Was I love them. I have a beautiful mum. I have a beautiful sister. We have a great relationship. And we've worked through some really challenging times and everything that comes with the post-traumatic stress with that. And I just felt this sense of responsibility as the oldest sister to really protect my family. And so I was on my bed. I was a little bit angry, a little bit lonely, a lot hurting. And I just said, God, if you're real, if you are real, would you bring a Christian friend and a Christian teacher into my life?
Wow.
I don't know why I prayed that. But I honestly believe from everything I've experienced that God meets us where we're at.
Yeah.
And when we're going through a time of chaos and going through pain, like many people might be now, just being real with God, not eloquent, not fancy. There's no special religious prayer that you need to pray. I found when I was real with God and I was at the end of my rope, that I saw the real God.
Wow.
And that he was
I love
real.
that.
And basically, that was the holidays at the beginning of the next term. I think it was term 2 or term 3. I can't remember. It wasn't the beginning of a school year. This was really interesting. One of the teachers came up to me because I was school captain and said, "We want to introduce you to a new teacher. We've started this position called Christian Living, and would really like you as the school captain to meet her." So I went and met this lady called Katie, and she was new to our school. She had moved city. She'd moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, which is where I lived at the time. And then my beautiful friend Jess, I met. She was in grade 11 and her family had suddenly moved from Sydney to the Gold Coast. And it took me a while to reconcile my head around this because I thought, no, this is too selfish a story that two people would move cities and it would be my answer of a Christian friend and a Christian teacher. Because it turned out both of them were new to the city, had started going to a church 40 minutes away from where we all lived on Northern Gold Coast. And they both invited me to this church separately of each other. And how Jess and I met is this theatrical, incredible story because we're in 2 different grades, but we felt like we knew each other. And by the end of the week, we found out we didn't. We just lived parallel lives in different cities. And anyway, both of them brought me to church. And through that, I realized, oh my gosh, God's answered my prayer. I had this peace. I had a peace the moment I prayed that prayer. I stopped crying. I had this peace that is unexplainable. I didn't have a theological background to explain it. It was just real. And anyway, that was the beginning of my journey. What happened through there was I met some of the most beautiful families, and I would watch them, like creeper watch them when I'd have sleepovers at friends' houses or invited over to my pastor's house, and I'd intentionally watch the dynamics between husband and wife and parents and children. And I was looking for what existed in my family and I couldn't see it. And that's when I thought, no, it's there. They must just be pretending, masking it in front of me. But I had no issue with it. I just thought every family has physical violence. Every family has psychological, emotional abuse, financial control. I didn't know that wasn't normal. And then I started to wonder if it was cultural because we've moved over from South Africa, but that's since been dismantled. That's not the case. But I just loved that these homes I would walk into, it was peace in the chaos.
Yeah.
And it began this pursuit for me and passion that one day when I got married, this is what I wanted. And I wrote down a page of what I wanted in a husband and what I wanted in a marriage. And there was, it wasn't like dollars in a bank or anything like that because we grew up in an affluent family. So that meant nothing to me as far as peace and chaos goes. So I wrote this list of characteristics and then I did a bonus page for my husband, green eyes, tall, dark hair, which he has. I got the bonus.
Well
It was amazing. Thank you, Jesus. But that was actually a bit of a joke, but I love that it actually, all the boxes it ticks plus some. But Nick and I intentionally pursued counselling as individuals before we got married, as well as together we, when we were engaged, we actually had extended counselling because that's when I met with this incredible counsellor who has a background in domestic violence. And he really was able to give names to what I'd been through. And I felt so validated in the sense of, this isn't in my imagination. But fast forward a few months into marriage, Nick and I were having a fight and we would have these, all of a sudden, we'd gone through healthy relationship, so we thought, all the way through until these early months of marriage. And I would escalate arguments really quickly from nothing. But I was so used to walking on eggshells and having anxiety and having to second guess everything that I did, which was my whole life. It was my whole normal, that I was doing this with Nick, except there wasn't anything. My imagination was going wild. If he was quiet, he's naturally an introvert.
Yeah.
He'd be quiet, I'd be going, what's wrong? And so I'd ask him and I'd push his buttons and escalate it. And eventually it got to a day where I was holding a cushion, which I threw on the ground. And I said to him, when are you going to do it? And he said, what? And I said, when are you going to hit me? And he burst out crying, and then I burst out crying because I'm like, I've made my husband cry.
Gosh.
We were both in ministry then, so what wasn't yet an ordained pastor, but we were both in ministry then. And he said, I would never, ever do that to you. What would make you think that? And I broke down, and he realised, wow, there's layers to Kirsty's hurt that we still need to work through. So we went for counselling again, and we just became intentional that disciplined, as you said, Deb. We are going to be so intentional in how we do marriage. We're going to be intentional in how we raise children. And we're going to do so in a way that ushers in peace. And I had this dream that we would one day build a home, and Nick had this dream too, that could be a place of peace for people to walk in, almost in a pay it forward for the homes of peace that I walked into. And that's really what birthed Home Chronicles, was stories of the home. I wanted to create an online presence where it would talk about DIY and recipes, but really family values. And for me, if I could shout it from a rooftop, I want girls to know, but really I want men and women to know. I want people to know that whatever your background, whatever your preconceptions of marriage has been, that there is a new way, there is a better way for you. Honestly, if I could jump through that screen right now, whatever your marriage is like right now, whatever dating relationship you're in, whatever your history's been, honestly, there is the most incredible pathway forward for you, and you can have a healthy family life.
I love it. You're just speaking so much freedom.
Yeah,
well, you're just speaking freedom into the girls, and that it takes responsibility, to say, hey, there's some things I need to address. There's history there, because I think everybody wants to be a great mum. Everybody wants to be a great wife, everyone wants to be a great friend, and it takes reflection and going, how do I do this? I need to stop and go, what do I need to change? What do I need to apply? Because it doesn't just come, even tonight, we can't just give you the recipe on how to raise amazing kids. It has to be you going, I'm going to implement this. I'm going to have strategy, take responsibility and apply these things, I love that you're saying that you sought counselling, that's not a weakness, that is a strength.
Absolutely.
That women get help, that we make a conscious decision that we don't need to do this alone. We need the wisdom, we need the guidance. And now you are a reflection and a testimony of being able to do that so well. You and Nick's marriage is just so beautiful, and so well done. Congratulations. It's just stunning, isn't it? Stunning.
Could I add on that? Just you mentioned counselling. Yeah. That's not just part of our early story. We made a decision that whenever we have a season change, we'll seek someone.
Awesome.
And we've just been blessed with this beautiful person in our life from the get-go, and he's remained that. And so when we were pregnant with both our boys, we went and saw him again, and we thought, we're doing great, like, I can't wait to see him again. And cracks would show as we were talking, and he pressed on some buttons. But we love that, because I think what really frustrates me, especially in a social media world, is there's this pressure to be the best. And look, at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of dirty laundry on social media too. Yeah. For me, it's like, keep some dignity for yourself. Yeah. You can be real and transparent without sharing everything about you. Yeah. And in fact, if you don't, it kind of helps you to be able to grow through it and not be labelled as something.
Absolutely.
But we're just huge fans of counselling. I think it was last year we were interviewed at our church by one of our pastors on relationships, and people were surprised to hear that the year before It's what, 2019. So in 2018, we had sought counselling. We had this one thing crop up in our marriage. It was a time that was under pressure externally, and we could not see eye to eye on it. And the thing is, it wasn't actually even that big, but we decided, you know what, we're just going to get a mediator on this because we're both strong-willed people. And we couldn't, it took us 2 or 3 days, and we're like, you know what, we are not finding and seeing eye to eye, but if we leave this can be something we need. And someone came in just with an outside perspective when we were tired, we were worn down by the external circumstances we were in, and a third party gave us clarity. And here we were thinking, oh, we've got everything together. We've had this nailed now for years. You know, we counsel couples as far as pre-marriage counselling goes, and we're passionate about it. We love being real about it. But even then, like, we're not perfect people, and we're not asked to be. We're asked to be real through relationships.
So good. So good. I love it. I love it. I love it. Debbie, you are such a successful woman. Honestly, you are so inspiring. She is just an incredible leader within her own company, but you just lead women. I don't think I could name someone who is more encouraging in my own life. You just speak always so much life into everybody that you're around. I know when she met, she's raving straight to Kirsty.
Yes,
I've cooked everything. You are just incredible. I'm fangirling.
It makes me feel so loved.
I know. Anyway, and so, you know, you really have just represent everything by looking at your family. I see 2 incredible high-achieving young men that you have raised. Your husband, Jeff, you know, he's just dynamic in everything he does. You know, I would love you, like Kirsty, just to share a little bit about your story. You know, I think your story speaks of commitment. It speaks of discipline. It speaks of intense love. I just think you are such a lover. You just love people, so hospitality. Just tell us how did you get it? Tell us about the boys. I know you probably don't want to brag, but we think they're incredible.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Joey. Look, let me just say right up front that I don't think any of us would sitting here say that we think we know everything about everything and we do it all right. You know, we probably do more wrong than we do right. I know that's for me, definitely. And a lot of what, you know, we share is our opinion, and it's probably things that we've chosen for our own lives. And I want to encourage you, if you're sitting at home and anything that I say is not something that, you know, you're currently doing or want to do, you know, don't take offense to it. Just shut your ears and go la 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 la. But I can only kind of speak from my journey and what we experienced. You know, Jeff and I were very intentional. You hear that word being said often tonight, and I think, you know, we should live intentionally and what it means to live intentionally. But, you know, everything's not as you see it. You know, I listen to Joey say you're this successful business person, and I say that I work in business, yes, a family business, and I'm very, very blessed with that. I love it. But, you know, I think success is something that we just keep working towards. You know, I love to pay attention to the journey. And as I'm paying attention to the journey, I will get to the destination. I actually speak those words out to myself many times in a day when I'm not feeling quite like I should be. I just keep saying, I just keep paying attention to the journey. I just keep paying attention to the journey. I just keep paying attention to the journey. And, you know, the destination is there. My childhood was probably not, you know, I came from a very poor family. I spent most of my childhood without a home. We didn't have a family home. We lived with relatives. So we would spend so many times at my mum's sister, at my dad's brother, and for as long as they would have us. So we would be there 3 months, maybe 4 months, and there'd be times where there's only me and my sister and my mum and dad, but there'd be times where all 4 of us couldn't stay in the one house because they couldn't fit us. And so we spent separate. And I remember we were evicted on Christmas Eve. I will never forget this as a little girl, walking along holding my mum and dad's hand. I was right in the middle, always in the middle, my sister on the end, and we had 2 brown paper bags, and that was it. That was us. That was family. But you know what? when I look at now today, yes, we do have material things, and my parents have worked incredibly hard to break generational curses that were on families. And when I say curses, I don't mean that as a spiritual thing. I mean bad habits, habits that have just been passed down from one to another to another.
Yep.
And I'm eternally grateful. I'm probably... I love that you say that I love on people, because that's who my mother is. So I love to think that that side of her is coming out on me.
For sure.
And I love to honour them, because a lot of who I am and who my boys are because of the sacrifices and the price that my mum and dad made. So I'm very aware of that, and I never lose sight of that, and I never want to lose sight of that. But I remember that as a child, my mum and dad always put us first. However that looked for them, they were always present. We were always together. You know, if it was birthdays or Christmases and they had no money, my dad would go to the dump and he would do up a bicycle to give to my sister. They would find the doll, and my mum would make the outfit and turn it into a bride's doll that I still have today, but we were together. So that was a really important thing for me to nurture in my family with Jeff and the boys. We wanted to do it together. And I really do believe that being present for your children is the greatest gift you will ever give them in every season, in good seasons, in bad seasons. My boys are without a doubt my greatest joy. Like, they actually make me smile talking about them. I know I annoy the living daylights out of them, and I know that just touching them makes me happy. I very often just sit. Now, they are now 19 and 23. So when they were little, they loved all the cuddles and all the hand holding, but of course that stops. But sometimes I'll get a little pinky, or sometimes I just like to brush past, and they are my joy. And I encourage you as mums, you know, there are days that it doesn't feel joyful, but they can still be your joy.
So good.
You know, it doesn't feel it, but they can still be your joy. Mine were always my joy, and I love everything that I get to do with them. You know, now again at 19 and 23. So my 23-year-old has graduated from a double degree of law and commerce. He has started his own business with my nephew. It's called the Lawyers Market, and it's basically an online lawyers space, brand new innovative thing that they have done. Very exciting for him. He wants to pursue more the consulting in business, going into businesses that are failing and showing them how to rescue. He's got a huge heart. He definitely, without a doubt, is the most intelligent person that I know, to the point that I have to get people to interpret what he's saying sometimes because I don't understand it. But he definitely has found his success. There's been a journey to that, as I said before, paying attention to the journey. And there's a couple of stories in particular with Josh where Jeff and I really parented him, and we're going to talk about that too. You know, parenting isn't always the rosy times. Parenting them too is guiding them through the times where they don't want to hear what you've got to say, but you still have to say it. And then we have Elijah, who is very different to his brother. He's 19. He is very privileged that he has been able to represent Australia on the swim team. So he is an Australian Dolphin. He was on the Commonwealth Games team, won a gold medal at that. He obviously was working towards the Olympics, 2020 Olympics. That's now on hold till 2021. But that's a story in itself as well. Remember, there's no perfect picture. You know, even that, you say, oh, you have, you know, a son who's about to become an Olympian. Well, look, there are so many curly stories in amongst that as well. But you know what? One thing that we embrace learning in all seasons, and success isn't just about doing the good things well, it's also about doing the bad things well. You know, we learn more through our trials, and that can be very loosely said, but I fail so many times. I failed with my boys so many times, but I was always intentional to stop and to say, well, what did I do wrong there? What could I have done better? How could I have said that differently? You know, so next time I've got another chance. You know, I've got another chance to speak to them differently. Like when they were little, you know, mums, we get that bit of getting out of the house of a morning, and you feel that terrible tone that comes with that, you know, like I remember one day listening to myself and thinking, who is that person?
Right.
And heaven help those poor children that are having to
You're
listen
talking
to
about their
her.
screaming, getting the car.
Yes, and
get your
and
shoes
even if
on.
they're not
voice.
screaming, it's just that
We all do
voice,
it,
like
yeah.
clean your teeth, put your deodorant on. That's a
Who
big
am
joke in
I?
my house about putting the deodorant on. I like my voice to smell good.
Yeah, fair enough.
But you feel it. And I remember waking up one day and thinking, right, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do this. And I narrowed it down. I thought, right, what am I doing wrong? Why does it end this way every day?
Oh, wow.
And you know what I was doing wrong? I didn't allow enough time. I didn't allow enough time to be ready with everything so that when we were leaving the house, it was a peaceful motion instead of it being a rushing motion.
So
You know, it's that rushing out the door that gets everybody at each other rather than it being a peaceful, let's be laughing as we're out the door. So what did I do? Something so simple. I just got up earlier. I just decided to be more organised and get myself ready and get the house ready and made sure the breakfast was happening. And now I remember I had a swimmer, so our day was early anyway. Elijah's in the water at 5 a.m. every day. So, you know, back when he was at school, that was 3:30 starts to be ready. Now that was hard. Yes, 3:30. I know, it's insanity, isn't it? But it was worth it. It was so worth it. Was it hard in the beginning? Yeah, it definitely was. But you get a rhythm, you get a routine. And then before you know it, I loved how we felt more that way better than the other way. So by shifting something as simple as me being more organised and getting up that little bit earlier, I changed the whole dynamic in the home. So yes, you would look and you would think, okay, my boys have achieved certain successes, absolutely. But they've also had their obstacles in those times. And Jeff and I have been very present through every bit of that. And we have chosen to parent them. We've not chosen to just walk alongside of them. We want to parent them because we think that they need guiding. And they do need guiding, just as we need guiding. You know, we all need guiding from someone. And, you know, as mamas sitting there today, God picked you. He picked you to guide that little one. And so that's why we need to, you know, they may not like to be told, don't touch the hot stove because they really want to touch the hot stove. But we know if they do it, they're going to get burnt. We still have to say it, even though they're not going to like hearing it. We know they don't want to be told, you know, they can't have every toy in the shop and they're going to throw themselves on the ground. But you know what? You can't buy them every toy in the shop, so you have to say it. That principle there never changes when they're teenagers, and now I've got young adults still living in my home. So that principle of when they're 2, of saying no sometimes or guiding them this way, it never changes. You take that same principle when they're teenagers and you still have to say no and you still have to guide them. When they're adults, still have to say no, still have to say guide them. The difference is when they're adults, they don't have to do it, but we still have to say it. That's the big thing. They don't have to do it, but we still have to say it. So Joey, I think that the journey definitely has got all sorts of different colours. I like to call them colours. I don't like to call them challenges too much because it sounds hard. It just sounds like that's going to be not very fun. And I like to have a lot of fun. You know, I love people and I love to enjoy people. So there's going to be colours, definitely. But how we navigate through those colours is how we get to the end result. So, you know, I loved hearing what you say about my boys, and definitely, but I don't want anyone home to think, oh, well, that's all right for her because, you know, she's got these super successful kids. Because you know what, they would even probably say now, especially Josh, my oldest one, he's not super successful and he's got way more things he wants to accomplish. But it all starts somewhere. And it really does start with us right back in the beginning.
Well, your intentions from the start have absolute, you know, created incredible family. You know, the culture of your family and the way the boys are is a credit to you. And so I could lean in and listen to you all day, Deb. I think that, you know, what you say and what you represent is truly beautiful. You know, right now, this season is crazy. You know, we've never walked these days before. And, you know, like I said before, I don't want to, you know, ignore this elephant in the room, that there's this nation shake or world shake that's happening right now. But just listening to you both talking, you know, the intention of what we're doing in this moment, our reaction, that we're just not reactive, but we're actually paused and we're trying to do the right thing. You know, just I think by you being even online tonight shows that you want to put yourself, you want to posture yourself in to do this well and to lean in and learn and grow as mums. And, you know, I would just love to chat through just quickly, you know, how can we do a really hard day well in this season? I think, you know, a lot of us are going to have kids at home. Homeschooling. I know our Nashville location is looking in and our Auckland location is looking in. All the Citipointe churches have girls that are watching tonight across the world, and at all different times and level of isolation right now, you know. We have kids at home for months potentially, and some just don't even have that, but they're nervous about the kids coming home soon. I'd love to just chat into how do we do those hard days well in this unexpected season. But more than that, I really want to know, how do we get the most out of this moment? You know, not be going into this, oh my gosh, kids are going to be with me. And, you know, I even hear the tone on Facebook, like you were saying, the venting and that over communicating, which is you're already expecting it to be hard. And, you know, we're already expecting it to be manic and they're going to drive me crazy before it's even happened. But I would love that we could encourage the girls tonight to fix their posture to a place of, I actually could just get the most incredible time with my kids, more than I ever have. And yes, it's not going to be perfect. Have you seen the meme with the kids tied up on the floor while mum's trying to work at the table? You know, we're going to have laughs about it, and there are going to be moments that are hard and that we'll have to navigate. But I'd love to encourage the girls tonight to be able to find that posture in advance, that we can make the most out of this. I can learn more about my child than I ever have because I have so much time with them. You know, you would look back, Deb, I'm sure, at your boy's life and think, I would love to have them because now they're 20 and I wish they were 7 and we were doing kids and they were hugging you more. You know, looking at that. How do we do that? How do we do the hard days? And how do we do, you know, make the most out of this, you know, exclusion moment?
I am so excited about the thought of a lockdown because it means my 2 boys would be in the house constantly with me. I could think of nothing better than that. And to be honest with you, even when they were little, I loved every second of it. And I encourage you that if you're not loving every second of it, look at why. And perhaps it's not about them, maybe it's about you. I'm not saying it is, but just maybe.
That's a great point.
And that's maybe something that you've just got to look at, because at the end of the day, our kids are who we mold them into. You know, they are these little sponges that come into the world with their unique little personality.
Love it.
And, you know, they model what they see. They model what they see. It's like I often liken it to when learning languages. You know, the little Chinese baby that's born in with mum and dad speaking Chinese, they speak Chinese. You know, the little baby in Australia that's born, you know, they listen to mum and dad speaking English and they speak English. You know, it literally is what they see and what they hear is what they do. So it's exactly the same. So if right now you're thinking, okay, this is so crazy, I can't stand my kids around, well, maybe just pause for a minute and just have a look at why. Because maybe there's something you need to do a little differently in that. Elijah has this massive poster on his wall that he has done himself that says, preparation is the life of a warrior and discipline is my weapon.
Wow.
I'll just say that for you one more time. Preparation is the life of a warrior and discipline is my weapon. Now, I really do believe that overcoming any hard time, and you know what's going on with this virus, this too shall pass.
That's right.
This will be something we will talk about in years to come. Because remember, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about bushfires and we're talking about floods and we're talking about airline strikes and we're talking about, you know, terrorist attack and 9/11. Remember that when 9/11 and the whole world came crashing down? Now that's like a faded memory. So that's the good news, because it is definitely going to pass. But you know what? We're going to prepare. We've got to prepare ourselves for those hard times so that when they come, we're not rocked. We're not rocked. It's not this big disaster. We just have to re-navigate that little bit. So how do we prepare? It's again what we invest into us and what we invest into our children.
So great.
You know, I'll give you a very practical example of preparation. So I said before, who our kids are, what we invest into them as children is who they'll be as teenagers. So real example. all the way through my boys growing up. Now, again, this was just a value that Jeff and I had, so don't judge me out there, please. We had a value that we did not want our boys to go to schoolies. Now, I decided that from when they were at preschool, because I just did not want my precious little beautiful child in that environment. So we conditioned them all the way through primary school, high school. Oh, schoolies, you're not going to go to schoolies. You're going to be doing something way better than schoolies. Oh my gosh, we're going to celebrate leaving school together with a family time. Finishing school's about family. It's not about you. So by the time they got into high school, they were so conditioned for this that we even started saving for the family holiday that we were going to have as soon as they graduated year 12. Now, of course, it gets to like year 10 and 11 and all the other kids are starting to talk schoolies and starting to pay their deposits, and they'd come home and go, oh, what do you think about that? Because no, remember the family holiday. We've got oh, that's right. Yeah, the family holiday. So they did test it. And if we had have probably said, oh, well, would you really like to go? I'm sure that could have taken another path. Yeah. But we conditioned them from little kids how that was going to look as a teenager. Now, real example with now the teenager to the adult. So Joshua, our eldest, also was a swimmer all the way through school. He was very, very good at open water swimming. Actually, he won actually got second in nationals a couple of times, and gets to year 12 and he decides he wants to quit. Well, Jeff and I did not think that was the right thing for him. He had gone so far, he had created these disciplines, and we knew our wisdom, see again, that's what we're here as parents, sure. We're here to guide them. Our wisdom was having such a drastic change of routine would not be healthy in the most significant year of his schooling life. So every time he say he want to quit, we would say, buddy, we don't think that's wise. But I want to quit. You can't force me. We'd say, buddy, we don't think that's wise. Now you're being those pushy parents. You're just like everyone else. You're pushing me to do something I don't want to do. Buddy, we don't think that's wise. We just never shifted our position. Now, as it turns out, Joshua kept swimming all the way till the end of school, and he ended up getting a full scholarship to Bond University. Wow. So he got to do his double degree university with a scholarship because he continued his swimming just through to year 12. Yeah, now, he would look back and say, wow, so glad I did that now because I could never have done that. But in that season, he couldn't see it. Yeah. So that's where we're there to say, hey, you know what? It's so good. We don't need to budge off this. Just because you're saying you want to do that doesn't mean that's necessarily right. But see, that doesn't just come with all of a sudden trying to tell your 17-year-old that they can't do this. Yeah. It's right back from when they're children. Yes. And then they say, oh, can I go to a sleepover every night of the week? Oh, no, buddy, that's probably not the best thing on a school night. It's those times then what brings this today. Yeah. So what I encourage you to do when I say talking about preparing for the hard times, prepare how you want your family to look. Great. Prepare how you want your children to be, because hard times are actually, I don't actually reckon they're a thing. I just kind of think we do life, and life has this. Yeah. You know, it has the highs and the lows, and we've got to learn to do them all well. Yes. We've got to do the highs well and the lows well. So it's not necessarily preparing for the hard time, it's preparing for how you want your life to look, how you want your family to look. And that was something that Jeff and I worked hard at. It didn't come just easily. Sometimes we were mocked. Sometimes we were definitely like, you know, are you the hover parent? And we don't believe we were the hover parent. Yeah. We believe that we had an image that we wanted them to follow, and we just never wavered. And I think for you, how you'd like your family to look is probably very different to mine. And that's good, because that's what makes our world so wonderful, that we're made up of all different types of people. But however you decide you want it to look, then just don't waver from that. I love it. You know, don't let distractions make you waver. Sometimes friendships can make you waver. I remember a very significant time in the boys' lives when they were probably just before they were hitting teenage years. We had family friends that also had kids, and we could see that the values that their family had were very different to ours. And I remember having a talk with Jeff one night and saying, you do understand that this is all fun and games while they're wanting to play in the play center at McDonald's, but when they become teenagers and they want to go this way, and our boys want to go this way, it's going to cause a problem. They're probably going to want to go that way. So we knew that we needed to pull back from those relationships. So sometimes there are friendships that you need to pull back from because you can see that's not where you want your family to go. That's not how you want your family to look. And, you know, that's not easy, but it certainly is worthwhile. So my thing, I think, is preparation. Preparation is the greatest thing that you can do for your family and for your own self, because then you're ready. Then you're ready with whatever happens. And I'm sure beyond this virus, there'll be many other things.
I love it. And I love that you've said this too shall pass, because this conversation isn't just about, you know, this season we're in right now, but it's actually how we can prepare for this next season or whatever season is, high and lows, like you're saying. Definitely. I know going into the homeschooling time or the isolation time that maybe we're going to be entering, who knows what tomorrow will bring. But, you know, I also think preparation in regards to boundaries and disciplines and decisions to make. We have a 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old at home, so we're in that sort of middle dynamic between you guys. And Adam and I are very passionate about boundaries in the home. I think right now there's going to be a different dynamic that we're going to maybe try to extend a little grace on the kids, you know, and I think that could be a little bit dangerous in this season where, yes, we're extending grace, but we need to be careful not to allow that too far where we're removing the boundaries maybe we already had prepared and put in place. Say, for instance, the kids are mucking up at home and we think, you know what, just let them go. There's a virus right now, you know, just letting it go. But in fact, I think we need to be like, you know what, actually, the values in our home is A, B, and C. You know, we wouldn't normally do that, so we're not going to do that. We wouldn't normally let you watch that Netflix for 6 hours straight because we're not at school. So just because we're all homebound, we still aren't going to do that. We wouldn't normally allow you to speak, you know. And so I think, wouldn't you say, you know, Kirsty, in this period, that we need to work out how to do this well and still remain the parent, making those wise decisions, like you said, and keeping those boundaries in place, you know, because I think kids thrive when there is boundaries. It's not punishment. They actually thrive when they have those boundaries and structure for them. What do you think?
Oh, look, I totally agree. Somebody once said to me, talking about God, talking about rules, in inverted commas, that God has given us boundaries as nurture to protect us. And that has been the lens that we've done parenting through. Again, as Deb said before, totally not an expert, not a perfect parent whatsoever. But, you know, we're learning as we're going, but we are intentional and we do have an image in our mind of what we want as a family. And so some of the things we do is we ask ourselves in a moment, is this something that's a character thing? Like, for instance, as you said before, we're in a virus, so we'll let it go. Well, the fact is, children are going to grow up to be teenagers, young adults, and things are going to happen in their life. And just because a crisis is happening, does that mean you can change what is valuable to you as far as character goes? I don't want to groom my children to know that when there's a crisis, you can go do what you like, sweetie, because, you know, we're going through a tough time. Because one day they could be an adult who hits a crisis in business or perhaps their marriage, and so they go do something that goes against their character in a moment and regret it. And so we see boundaries as something to nurture our children. Now, I think there's a difference, and particularly because of my family background, I know very well that we grew up with strict boundaries, but they weren't to nurture us. And so you can be controlling of your children or you can be nurturing. And I think you look at a shepherd and a sheepdog and how they navigate the sheep through the gates, and there's that gentle relationship and that knowing relationship of guiding and steering. And that's the posture that we like to take as parents. So just some practical things. We house sat for 14 months in 17 different houses. If you do the maths on that, some of those houses we lived in a week, 3 weeks. I think the longest stint we had was 4 or 5 weeks. And so you could imagine that could be chaos. We chose in advance, my mama heart didn't want to waste, you know, this 14 months of our life and let it just go down the drain because so much change was happening. So what we did was we communicated to our children that whilst we'd be moving houses a lot, we would have consistent things that happened every day.
So good.
And I think in this season right now, pick your 3, 4, 5 things that need to happen every day as a family. For us, we centered it around, we can't guarantee we're all together at night, but we wake up in the same house every morning. So family breakfast together was big, talking about what's ahead for the day, giving our kids expectation and rhythm. So when you wake up in the morning, these are the things we do when we wake up. We eat breakfast, mum has a coffee. By the time they've come downstairs, I've got my Bible open, I've had my personal time. Dad packs lunches while mum gets dressed. There's certain rhythms to our day, and it gives the kids security and safety when there's lots of change happening. We centre our evenings around board games. So there's card games that take 5 minutes to play. We're playing one at the moment called Rat-a-Tat-Cat. Great if you've got kids in primary school. But we play Monopoly Deal with our kids. We don't go easy on them. We play full hard to the point that our kids can now beat us. But we centre our day around rhythms. And I think rhythms are a great way to look at it, because a rhythm has a flow to it. A structure is breakable and rigid. And I think the thing we need is a bit of fluidity right now, because days are going to look for goodness sakes, if I have to do maths with my children, it is the one subject I did not thrive at school and doesn't come naturally to me. My youngest child, he can explain it to all of us. He's like fantastic maths brain. But, you know, I'm going to need that rhythm to the day so that when things break, they look different. We've got a flow to come back to.
And with or without this extra dynamic right now, all of these things apply. You know, just having the pattern that children just can flourish in, because it's consistency. They want to know that they can expect that value in their home. They want to know I can expect mum to be there when I wake up. And if you know, maybe mum's a shift worker, or maybe you're a single mum and your life, you know, dynamic is different than these stories. I love that your stories are so different too, that you've come through to be such incredible women today. You know, I think that all this whole conversation has been about making choices, being intentional, and that real reflection on how are we doing it, what kind of mum do we want to be, what kind of home do we want, you know. And through this crisis and this crazy moment, I think that we can unpack this for days. I know there's live chat going on right now, and amongst, you know, different parties that you guys maybe cannot wait to have. Keep this conversation going, you know, even in life groups, and encourage each other. How do we do these things? How do we further the conversations to apply intentional child raising? You know, I always say, I'm the best mum for my kids. You know, God has called me, God has given me these kids. So I just need the wisdom of God to make the right decisions. You know, we can listen to this, we can do blogs, we can research, read books, but I think it comes down to, you know, for me as a Christian woman, as a pastor, my faith, what is God telling me? What has he told me in the word of God? You know, how to raise kids, what to imply, what boundaries will see them flourish. And so I encourage you, you know, if you haven't got a relationship with God and you want to do that, we want to hear from you. Make sure you chat or email us, because we are so sure that he is the center and he is the anchor, and he gives us the wisdom we need to create, you know, great houses, great marriages, great homes, great relationships. And so reach out, girls, if you need that support in any way. I can't thank you girls enough to being here. I want to say on the couch, but on our 3 chairs that are 1.5 social distanced away. We're going to watch this back in a couple of years and just laugh that we sat this far apart.
And
it's
yet
so
feels
fun.
So connected.
I know. I've loved this so much. You know, we've got a word from our global senior pastor, Pastor Lee Ramsey. She is one of the best mums I know, honestly. She is so wise. I'm just going to throw to a clip for her that she filmed today for us.
Hey girls, it's Mama Lee here from my quarantine. I just love that you're all getting together, and I just want you all to know that I'm thinking about you, praying for you, and I know this is no easy season, and you know, seasons come and go, and you must make the most of the season that you're in. And you know I say a lot, it's not time that makes things better, it's what you do with the time that makes things better. And so while you're at home with your children, I know some of you are working and juggling babies at the same time. But remember this, that fear is contagious, but so is faith, love, and hope. And I just want you to remember that while you're with your kids, be very present when you can. Kids are not going to remember, you know, how much they learnt while they were at home with you when they think back when they're 30 years old and remember the day. They're going to remember how loved they felt, how understood they felt, and they're not going to remember that the house was untidy. They're just going to want to know that they were happy and safe and that home was peaceful. And so remember to be present with your kids. Let lots of things slide. Give them some quality time. Early in the day, I always used to find when my kids were little, and then you'll find that they'll be able to entertain themselves most of the day. Don't fight with your children over trying to get homework done. Don't fight with them over trying to keep the house perfect and tidy. Just remember to make it a fun place. This isn't forever. And just want you to know that, I'm thinking of you all. I know it's not easy. I know it's weird. It's weird for everybody, and we're all in this together. And just one other thing is also just remember that children love to still talk to grandparents, and in particular, grandparents are feeling very isolated right now. So even make a time where your kids are engaging with their grandmas and grandpas and aunties and uncles and cousins and so forth. And but another thing, don't be on social media all day. That's not going to help you either. So pick your times, hang out together when you should, and just love on each other. Just want you to know, again, loving you all, love that you're all hanging out together, whether it's Colorado, Nashville, New Zealand, Australia. Just be chatting, girls. Love you lots.
Well, thanks so much, girls, for joining us tonight. You know what? Don't do this season alone. Make sure you're connecting with other young mums, with other girls, keeping your conversations going. Pick up the phone, old school. Keep calling, texting, messaging. Don't do this season alone. Let's continue just to grow together and not be isolated. You know, I want to invite you to be part of our church online this Sunday. You can head to citipointechurch.com/online. Join us for church. You know, get amongst it. Make sure you're leaning in and continuing to grow spiritually at this time. We've loved having you. Thanks for letting me host tonight. We hope to see you again. Thanks for being part of This Is Motherhood.